Hello, my name is Andrejs Olins, and today I will like to describe a couple of things that we figured out people that are coming to the bootcamp are lacking. So these are knowledge of how things are working within computer. There are a couple of things that might go right, but there are a bunch of things that might go wrong. And in order to make everything work, you need to make sure that nothing is going wrong. So these regular things that might go wrong are those. These are architecture, these are rights, resources, and dependencies. There are a bunch of architectures right now out there. Most common of those are Windows, either 32-bit or 64-bit. These are different type of Unix systems, either Linux, Ubuntu, CentOS, Solaris, and whatever. And this might be also right now gaining popularity, Macintosh operating systems. Why this is so important? Because the first thing that you do, you're downloading some kind of distributive. And when you're downloading those, you need to make sure that this particular distributive is mentioned for your particular system. And the architecture is important when you're downloading binaries, for example, for your Java runtime environment or Java development kit. In order to make this run on Windows, you need either to right-click on My Computer icon and click Properties, or type System Info in the black screen. If you're using any type of Unix machines, please type uname-a. This was the first thing that might go wrong. The next thing that might go wrong is the notion of working directory. Most of the Windows systems are hiding this notion from you by usage of sophisticated systems such as Windows and tiles and whatever, but this still is working behind the scenes. So what Windows has hidden from you is this. For example, you can create a text file called text.txt on your desktop and then double click on that. What's going to happen behind the scenes is that operating systems will figure out what type of interaction that was. It will figure out what type of file this is and what type of action should operating systems run when this action is invoked on this particular file. And in this case, operating system will create a call to notepad.exe with this file as a parameter. But we can do the same thing in the console. You can open a console, you can go to a desktop, and then you can run notepad and then path to your file. Right now it will work, and it will work because you're executing this from a desktop. But if you go away from this folder, for example here to the test folder, the same command will not work. Notepad test.txt will not work because right now in this given directory there is no such file. And we can do the same thing in the Unix. Right now in the Unix shell, we are creating a test file and we are opening it up. And right now we're going to switch to different directory. And right now the same thing, it cannot locate where this particular file is. And the next question, what is this notepad and what is more in the case of Linux? And why is it executing? And the next notion that is hidden behind the scenes is the notion of the path. The path is all the list of extra commands that are accessible by the user from any point in system. You can make sure that you know them by usage of these commands. From the black screen in Linux, you can use echo $path, and in Windows, you can use this command, echo %path%, or more easily, you can use the following path. You can go to your environment variables and check out what is your path for your particular user. In this particular example, we have managed to execute both notepad, echo, and more commands. But how? There are next thing that might go wrong with your program is rights. In those examples, we have enough rights to execute those commands, and we have no dependencies that would be necessary. And those dependencies might be very varying. For example, the easiest one that why your program might go wrong is that you do not have enough disk space. There are very easy way how you can check amount of disk space using my computer. It will show you straight away, but there are same commands that you can use from the black command line. So as follows, you can use dir command, and in Linux you might use different command called df-h, and this will show how many disk space you have on your computer left. The next dependencies that you might run into are applications that are installed and that some kind of libraries that are necessary for your program to run. These are different type of dependencies, these are different type of resources, but if, for example, your Java command needs to use some kind of specific library, you need to make sure that this particular library can be located on this computer. Next thing are different type of resources. The easiest one was this disk space. Another one could be network ports, could be special devices on special ports such as COM or LPT or whatever. And these might be extra things that your program would need in order to run. And you need to make sure that these particular resources and dependencies are fulfilled before you should run your command. Next thing, why we have succeeded in running those previous examples with Notepad, More, and Echo was because we had enough rights to execute those. There are different type of rights management in different types of systems. For example, in Linux, we have this owner group world type of rights where you can define whether owner or group or particular group or any user on the system can either read, write, or execute the given file. This is more widely used in a commercial world, in a Linux world, Unix world. But on Windows, there is a more powerful access control management system where you can list that any particular either user or a group can either do or cannot do any particular action with your file. It might be full control or read or write access rights to those particular files. And in Linux, there is this particular command called ls-la that will list all the folders in the file, and as you will see, it will also display those rights for both owner, group, and the world. And in Windows, it is more easy to right-click on the particular file or folder and then go to the security tab, and it will list all of those access rights that are associated with this particular file. And those rights are associated with users. Most of you are using Windows operating system, either it's Windows 10, Windows 7, or not much right now, but Windows XP, because it's right now de facto standard. About 76% of all browsers of the internet are using Windows systems. As it is configured only for the private use, most probably you're going to be the only user, and you will not switch between the users during your daily work. But there's definitely a user that is associated with you, with your login and password, that will be executing the commands that you're trying to do. And this user is going to be associated with the rights that you have given or revoked from a person. The same thing going to be on Unix systems, but there those rights going to be much more explicit, because there is a belief that on Windows machine you are not administrator despite the fact that you are, and on Linux machine there is a certain belief that you are definitely not administrator of your computer, despite of the fact that you might be in a such group. Most probably you will have admin rights on your local computer, therefore you most probably will be able to execute any type of commands, and therefore you will not ever encounter the problem with not enough rights error. And software development, on the other hand, there are strict limitations on the amount of rights that you can use, and you will be given only those rights that someone else has set for you. For example, if you are administrator right, you might be able to delete any type of programs or create any type of folders or delete any type of files. But if you're running your system, then most probably as a web server, user, you will not be able to either install additional software or delete any type of files or folders. And those users are the ones that are actually executing the processes for you. And once again, as most probably you are familiar with Windows types of systems, either it's going to be Ubuntu or Windows or Mac OS, you will be mostly encountering the applications that is taking either the whole session or the whole screen. It's going to be like the desktop apps, like the notepad that we have seen, or it's going to be this more command that we have used as well. And there are a lot of background processes that are required for your system to run consistently. And in order to get those, here's the command that you can use on Unix machines. It's called ps, processes for short. For example, ps-f will list all the processes that are currently running on your machine. And there is also a similar functionality program in Windows. It's called Task Manager, and then you can see in the processes tab how many processes are running behind the scene when you're, for example, not doing anything. But there are a bunch of processes and they are using a lot of memory and a lot of CPU power of your machine. Those processes might consume a valuable memory or CPU power, and you might be willing to either stop it or pause it. But those processes are, as I've said previously, are associated with users. And for example, on your Windows machine, you might be able to stop any type of processes because you have most probably admin rights. But on the other machines, you might not be able to. And for example, if you're seeing that there's a big process that is consuming a lot of RAM on your machine, you might not be able to stop it because it's running by some different users that have more privileges than you do. And right now, we have figured out almost all the common failure points that you might check if your program doesn't work. So those might be: the first thing, you need to make sure that the executable that you're trying to run can be run on your machine. You need to make sure that you have enough rights to execute the given process. You need to make sure that you have enough resources to use it. And you need to make sure that those parameters that you're trying to pass to your command are correct. Thank you. I'm Andrejs Olins, and I will guide you further on.